blah blah blah. Yeah. Okay, I don't have an intro. It doesn't really matter because there's only about 3 to 4 of you that actually watch my videos. I haven't made one in a while, and you know, I'm thinking I'm ready to come back.
No, you are not ready. Stay back.
No. I'm serious. I really think it's time for me to make this video. I've been kind of dabbling with it here and there. I've been trying to fit some pieces together, get all my information, do all my homework, and just make sure it's official.
Here's your chance. Show me you're ready.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it just occurred to me that I should really try to focus more on this channel. I'm not gonna spend too much on this recap, but it was a few days ago. I had just got 2 new subscribers, and it got me thinking, you know, people still watch this. I'm half-assing my job here, even though I'm not getting paid. I'm half-assing it when people want to see what I have to put out. So that's when I decided to go ahead and make this video today. I've actually spent all day working on this, editing, piecing things together. But, you know, before we get on to that, can we just take a moment to check out the poncho? Come on, man. I think everybody should have a poncho, really. It's pretty much a snuggie, but cool. Because, you know, I mean, you know, certain someone may be, you know, wearing a poncho from time to time. Okay, so as the title suggests, and as the clip suggests as well, with the poncho, talking about Castlevania today. Now, I'd be lying to you if I said I was a die-hard Castlevania fan since the very beginning. No. I'm actually going to be straightforward with you. Nobody come at me with pitchforks or torches. I just recently became a Castlevania fan. Now, wait. I have played them in the past. Don't get me wrong. I have. I was just young at the time, and it was really hard to understand a story when there's not much to go off of. It's, you know, it's a lot of reading pretty much. There wasn't voice acting throughout those games, because the very first one I played would be Castlevania 2 or 4. I don't remember exactly. What I do remember specifically, though, I did play Castlevania Legacy of Darkness and the 64. It's just a standalone title, Castlevania 64. So what brought me to this? In all honesty, it was, in fact, when I picked up Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. When I found out, you know, the Belmonts were in the game, I was actually intrigued, because it was like, oh, okay, so these characters that were in the games previously are now making it to the big leagues. And knowing that they had a lot of their abilities and weapons and items that they used in the games put into Smash Bros was really great. It was fun. I played King K. Rool for a little bit. We're gonna delve into a little Smash history of mine. It's not very big. Played King K. Rool for a bit, but the guy, I didn't seem to have too much fun with him. He was just, there's not much tactic really involved with him. It's just a lot of bullshit moves. But, you know, I eventually went to go pick up somebody that wasn't over the top, but also wasn't bottom tier either. I wanted something that I can have a well-balanced fight with. and I got, really interested in both Richter and Simon Belmont. Played Smash for a bit. I won some of my matches. I didn't win all of them. But moving down on how this went, I later just found myself wanting to know more. That's how I am. I get a taste. I get a little sample of the drug, and I want more. I went to the Netflix series. Watched season 1. Actually, I watched the first episode and I was hooked. It was like, why couldn't the video games explain this to me? What was so difficult about that? Even if it was just not there to me. I was young at the time, and now they were older, and in this day and age, going back, it's just why? And I like that the Netflix show, even though it's just based on Castlevania, they do a really good job on sticking as close to the canon part of the story as possible. And I just found myself hooked from there forward. After that, I declared myself a fan of Castlevania. I'm actually really big into it right now, and I can't find a single thing of why I wouldn't want to be a fan of Castlevania. I wouldn't understand why anybody would if you're not interested in the whole vampire hunting and all that nonsense. Maybe that's just for people like me. I don't know. We went from the Netflix show, and then I finished season 2, and then I was stuck. It was like, what's next? What comes after? And it's just, I don't know. So I go to my main source of information. I go to YouTube. And that's where I found a YouTube channel called, I believe it was Gamer Thumb TV. I had written it down somewhere, just make sure I didn't forget. I'll put the link to that in the description below, just in case you want to check it out, along with other videos that I mention in my own video, which will be a lot of that. So hopefully nobody comes to sue me, because I'm not getting paid for anything. I figure it'd be okay, right? Anyways, moving on from there, I learned all of the history of Castlevania, but just the canon parts. I did dabble in some of the non-canon stuff, but I really wasn't interested, because who cares? I mean, they're there if you want to play them, but it doesn't matter. I dabbled into the history really deep. I'm talking, I spent about 5 to 6 hours just learning about the entire timeline, and a little bit here and there of behind the scenes with the producers, the creators, the screenwriters, all that nonsense. I was hooked from there. And when you're hooked on something, you watch something, and then eventually you just want to play something. So that's when I ended up getting the dual pack for the PlayStation 4. I got Rondo of Blood, which is essentially just Castlevania Dracula X. And I also got Symphony of the Night. It came in a bundle. I was really enjoying those games, and believe it or not, they're really fucking hard. I shit you not. It's probably, Dark Souls ain't got shit on older games. I'll tell you that. And that altogether just made me want more. Of course, being as hot-headed as I am, I wasn't gonna beat the game. I wanted something that I can just relax and play. I do go back and play those games though. Whether I'm by myself or I just don't feel like playing online with my other friends, and I just want to play something where I know if I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. If I beat it, I beat it. I will eventually beat it someday, once I've mastered it. I think I'm on level 4 of Rondo of Blood. I didn't touch Symphony of the Night yet, because I think that comes after. I'm not sure. And then I recalled there being reboots of the games later down the line. And I was like, okay, something more modern. I'm interested. You've piqued me. First thing I do before I buy a game, I check for reviews. I don't always go to Metacritic first. What I normally do is I go to YouTube because that's my source of information. Like, you're getting information from me. Again, Gamer Thumb TV, that's going to be where you need to go. I did look up reviews. Now, these games were older, so GameSpot wasn't really covering it, and most of the major stuff that I look at now, TGN, all that good jazz, they weren't covering games back then. I was stuck with IGN. Now, IGN is a huge pain in my ass. I don't know if they're still... If these employees of IGN are still around, Colin what is it, Moriarty and Damon Hatfield, whatever. These guys are idiots. Now I'll explain why in a little bit. But they were really bashing hard on these games, and I wanted to feel it firsthand because I just feel like they weren't trustworthy. Something about them made them seem naive. So the way this happened is I ended up trying to find them as dirt cheap as possible. These games are expensive. I don't know why, if they're so bad as they're claimed to be. They're really expensive. It took me a minute to get them together, and I played a bit of each. I haven't completed them yet. The whole point of this video isn't to be a review. It's the comparison of the old story and the new story. And there's probably going to be like 10-15 minute rant about IGN because they're fucking idiots. So basically the old story, because that's the problem. Most people have a problem with the story. I hear a lot of, it's not Castlevania. And I'm here to just pretty much essentially say, they're not bad games if you're looking at it that way. So the story goes, Leon Belmont, I'm going to spoil most of this for you because you're probably never going to go back and play the PlayStation 2 copy of the game. Leon Belmont had a friend, Matthias, and they were part of a Holy Knights group. I'm really butchering this because I'm trying to make this video not super long. They're essentially the same. Like, I'm messing this up. They are of the same group. Matthias loses his wife. She dies. He disappears. Probably pissed off or whatever. Leon Belmont is the first Belmont. He goes and tries to look for his own wife because she has been captured by the vampire Walter that's in a castle. This is where the Dracula storyline comes in. Defeats Walter. You find out Matthias is, using that as an excuse to take the power of Walter. He becomes Dracula. That's fine and dandy. Totally cool with that. Now, the problem I hear with everybody else is this is not Castlevania. The reboot is not Castlevania. Now, what people need to understand is it's a reboot. It's okay for it to not be exactly like Castlevania. The big part of this is it's got the aspects of Castlevania. It's not Metroidvania. If you want that, then you need to go out and say that. But it is Castlevania nonetheless because it does involve Dracula. It does involve the Belmont clan. It does have the vampire killer. It does have the Hunter Whip, whichever one Simon Belmont uses. But that's where people come with the problem. Now, the best way I can counter argue with these things is to use the IGN employees as, examples, essentially. So when it comes to Damon, I think that's how you say his name. Damon did the review for Lords of Shadow. So the guy has a problem with contradicting himself. I say themselves because they both do it. They both fucking contradict themselves. He's constantly going and saying, I'm not even gonna bother, you can just see it for yourself.
Playing this reboot feels much more like playing God of War. However, once you get over the fact that it has almost nothing to do with the past games, playing this reboot, the story is nothing award-winning and doesn't fit into Castlevania canon.
See? He says it over and over. It's a reboot. He keeps comparing it, and it's a reboot. You can compare and contrast, but don't expect the same thing. That's not how it works. And then the problem of it being a hack and slash. Actually, I'll just insert the next video here.
Just like in God of War though, my eyes tended to glaze over with all the button mashing after a while, and I felt like I was just going through the motions.
Okay. Now, if anybody realized, the last two parts are not part of the game. Those are from previous games. How is that not the same thing? It bothers me very much because these are pretty much hypocrites. I love this, I hate this, even though they're the same. And then he goes on to complain more about backtracking, when in other games, older games, original games, you did the exact same thing.
Big departures from Castlevania convention include linear level progression and virtual lack of exploration. This game is huge and very replayable. There will be areas that you'll only be able to access once you power up your weapon, so returning to previous levels is encouraged. You'll also unlock level-specific challenges once you complete a stage the first time, adding further incentive to backtrack.
Look at that! Castlevania did like the opposite of this, especially with shit like the Medusa head. The problem here is that Simon's Quest is way too open-ended. Stuff is all scattered everywhere and it's easy to miss things, so you're gonna be doing a lot of back and forth through the same areas you've been through over and over and fucking over. I'm sick of these fucking blobs! Ah! They're back! So with that in mind, the developers realize they can't have these complicated, ridiculous enemy layouts in the game because nobody's gonna backtrack through this.
That's why this is what you call a Nintendo Power game.
Overall, at the end of his review, everything that's on the screen, it's still a reboot. I don't know what you expect.
It's strange. I can't really recommend Lords of Shadow to Castlevania fans. I recommend it to God of War fans. Konami is calling this a reboot, but it really seems like they're trying to use a popular name to sell a completely different game. Playing this reboot. If you can put up with a few technical issues and minor gameplay annoyances though, you'll find an enjoyable, epic quest here.
Now, Mirror of Fate is probably the one that pissed me off the most, because that's where the most, controversial things happen. This actually really makes me dislike Colin. I'm not 100% certain, but if he's still with IGN, you gotta cut him loose. I mean, no disrespect to you, buddy, but for you to go and say that you're a true Castlevania fan and complain about things that were in previous Castlevanias, something's wrong with you. I'm not trying to pick a fight. I mean, if you want to pick a fight, you're probably gonna lose the fight, because I have it written down. I have eyeballs in my head. I'm starting to think that you didn't really play the game seriously. I think your job just required you to plow through it, and that be it. Because it's annoying, because you're bitching about the Metroidvania stuff. First of all, that's what people wanted to begin with. You finally got it, and now you're bitching about it.
Mirror of Fate has absolutely no idea what it is. It doesn't know if it's an old school Castlevania game, or a Metroidvania Castlevania game, or even a Mercury Steam style Castlevania game. It's a haphazard amalgamation of elements from Castlevania history, and it comes off as totally unfocused.
Second, you're bitching about 4 characters you gotta, juggle. You did that in previous ones too.
And in that time, I played as 4 different characters with 4 different sets of items and equipment.
To thank Trevor, Grant joined him on his quest. Trevor was no longer alone in his mission. Dracula's son Alucard was also waiting to encounter Trevor on the path to his father. After testing Trevor's strength, Alucard was amazed at how powerful the young vampire hunter was, and revealed that he wanted to help Trevor destroy his father and stop the chaos he was unleashing onto the world. Trevor also rescued a young sorceress who had been turned into a statue, named Sypha Belnades. Working together, Trevor, Grant, Alucard, and Sypha fought their way through Dracula's castle and came face to face with death, trying desperately to protect his master.
And you're just as whiny as your predecessor. And by predecessor, I mean the guy that did Lords of Shadows. Backtracking. It was in one of the older original games. If anything, it's less tedious to do so. It really is. Compared to the old games, going back, if I had to pick one, I'd really rather go with the right-hand side here.
There are collectibles strewn around, 4 types in particular. But the map is so disjointed that getting back to anywhere you've been in the castle is a major chore.
Problem here is that Simon's quest is way too open-ended. Stuff is all scattered everywhere and it's easy to miss things, so you're going to be doing a lot of back and forth through the same areas you've been through.
That's why this is what you call a Nintendo Power game.
What really throws me for a loop is this guy actually likes Lords of Shadow.
In short, Castlevania fans deserve so much better than Mirror of Fate. The game's heart is in the right place, but in the end, it's a bit of a mess. It fails to tell an interesting or compelling story, a shame considering how many beloved characters it draws inspiration from. It fails to give players a fun environment full of truly different locales to explore, and it fails to put its hooks into players the way virtually every Castlevania game released on GBA and DS did. I'm a huge Castlevania fan, and I actually loved Lords of Shadow on console. But Mirror of Fate just isn't a good game. Save your money and hope and pray Konami gets back to the focused Metroidvania style of games they delivered with so much success.
But he got what he wanted. It's not completely, Metrovania, but it has the side-scroller aspect with the certain things that the older ones did. It tried to keep some elements because it's still a reboot. I don't understand what your problem is. I think they're either picky as fuck or they didn't enjoy the game. What the hell? Now, believe it or not, this Colin guy came back to review Lords of Shadow 2. Why? I don't know. The guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I just don't know. He literally, actually, I'll play it for you first and then I'll go ahead and I'll do my bitching on my behalf.
When Castlevania Lords of Shadow came out in 2010, it wasn't the first good 3D Castlevania game, but it was the very first one that truly understood what it was to be Castlevania. It abandoned many of the series' conventions and told a markedly different tale, yet it looked and felt like Castlevania.
So he says it is Castlevania. It feels and plays like Castlevania. But in Mirrors of Fate, which is more close to Castlevania, is a horrible game. Not to mention, the guy that did Lords of Shadow, the first one, literally says it in his review, not Castlevania. So IGN, there's no cooperation here. There's no communication. You got to be on the same page, because now you got 2 idiots in the office, which probably aren't there anymore. And I can see why, because they're idiots. The guy even went so far to compare it to Resident Evil.
Lords of Shadow 2 feels like a bonkers Resident Evil game.
If this guy played video games, I mean, if I were to compare that specific scene to another video game, it would definitely be Devil May Cry. I don't know where the fuck Resident Evil came from, but that's definitely not it. Now, the problem I have, I promise I'm almost done ranting about IGN. The problem I have with this guy, he says in both games he reviews, Mirror of Fate and Lords of Shadow 2, unappealing story, doesn't care for the characters. Then why the fuck do you like the first one? It doesn't make sense. Urgh.
Either way, the plot is uninteresting, largely full of characters and arcs that never fully grasped me and made me care. Enemy designs are uninspired, especially in the present-day setting. Why is Dracula fighting missile-launching mechs? And why do those alien-looking creatures have machine guns? But go in knowing that it's not nearly as good as the excellent Lords of Shadow, and that's truly a shame.
I don't get it. I really fucking don't get it. This guy is on some sort of drugs, where he was probably on acid whenever he was playing the first one, and then he was on some sort of, I don't know, steroid when he was playing the second two that made him pissed off all the time. I own these games. Maybe it's because he was playing it on console. Brother, get yourself a PC and play it the right way, because consoles aren't always 100%. That's why they come out with new ones every so often. Replay them. I'm not talking about gameplay. I'm not. The main purpose of this video is I don't see what's so wrong with the reboot itself as a story. This is where spoilers come in. If you plan on playing the game, I suggest you stop right now. If you don't plan on playing the game and you actually want to hear what I have to say, what makes this a great story, what makes me feel for this story, then stick around. You play as Gabriel Belmont, okay? Now, I don't know why he bashed on Mirrors of Fate so much. Mirrors of Fate is actually a very critical part of these games, because it does before and afters. Okay, so the start of Mirror of Fate is before Lords of Shadow itself. You start off and you're setting off to go hunt a demon, capture a demon. Your wife gives birth to quote unquote Trevor Belmont, and you know, the order takes him away because they know what you're about to do. They know what's about to happen. Your wife dies. You don't know you have a son. He's been kidnapped. The order sends you on a quest to go defeat the Lords of Shadow, because they're separating heaven and, you know, pretty much the world. And that's your job. That's your job. You're supposed to go save the world. That's fine. Doesn't feel like Castlevania yet, but it's getting there. You still have the fucking whip. Castlevania is all about the whip. Any of the games where I don't have a whip, which I'm not too excited to play Symphony of the Night because he plays a la carte and blah blah blah. You don't got a whip, I want a whip. Whips are cool. I lost my train of thought. Oh shit. Anyways, you go out, you're trying to defeat the Lords of Shadow. It's the only way to bring balance back to the world. You find out that Satan is trying to come and inhabit the earth, destroy life as we know it, reborn the earth, all that good stuff. Had a burp. And with all that being said and done, I really just summarized it all up because a majority of it is just the adventure. This is not about the gameplay. This is not a review at all. This is me on why I like the story. Eventually you find out that Gabriel was possessed to kill his wife. He was possessed to kill other people too. It's really fucked up because knowing you're at fault for it is just really shitty. All you would want to do is to just live your life in peace in the afterlife, but he's not done. So eventually he does have to go fight this being. After all of this, this is a DLC part, which if you're going to play the game, get the DLC. There's no point in having it if you don't have it. So you go fight the Forgotten One. It's this ancient creature that was created by the Lords of Shadow. It was too powerful, had to be sealed away. Now I am messing up some here. I realize it in my head, but I'm gonna let you correct me in the comments, just so that way we have some sort of conversation going on here. And the Forgotten One is trying to regain his power. Gabriel's the only one that can stop him. That one little brat turns him into a vampire. He's got to go stop him. He does. He absorbs the power. Gabriel's just... This mofo is immortal now. He's just slapping people around now. And from here, he's immortal. That's what I like about this so far. The fact that they actually give him that title. Dracula is immortal. Gabriel is Dracula. Dracula is immortal. In previous games, it's just Dracula's always coming back. Dracula's always coming back. Always back, always back, always back. And that's fine. It just gets annoying a little bit. It just gets a little annoying. You learn that he's immortal in Mirror of Fate. That's how you find out how Trevor Belmont becomes Alucard. How Simon Belmont kills Dracula. But he's immortal. It's just nice to have something there. A reason. He's immortal. Can't be killed that easy. That's fine. Previous games, he just kept getting summoned back, or somewhere in the loop, somebody somewhere, some ass fuck just finds a way to bring him back. It's fine. It just seems a little bit more simpler to just say he's immortal. I'm not saying I like one story over the other. I'm just saying it's not a bad reboot. When it comes to Mirror of Fate, it's really more intense than that, because Trevor doesn't know his dad. Trevor barely knew his mom. He was trained by the Order to kill vampires. And he found out the truth when he was already older. Had to go kill Dracula, knowing it's his father. But Dracula, Gabriel, not knowing Trevor's his son. They're duking it out. They're getting everything, laying hands on each other. And he ends up killing Trevor. The mirror is what shows him that that's his son. The idea that Trevor just completely forgives this person whom he never really truly met, just because he knows the truth. There's always like that in life where you don't know the truth. You're angry at somebody because you don't know the other half of the story, and you don't care to know until you finally hear it, and then you just feel that regret. This story connects a lot more than people think. Back in the day, those games had a story. They just were a little bit more flat, which is okay, because they're games that were, how should I say, retro. There wasn't a lot to do with the cartridge at the time. Now you have the time to make stories. Granted, in these games, there's a lot of reading involved, narrating, blah blah blah, cutscenes. You get a handful of them. You take what you get. Simon Belmont comes in later to avenge his father. It's just this big old thing where all the dramatic irony, where like, you know who's who, but they don't know who's who. What's so bad about that storytelling? Because other games, other books, other movies do the exact same thing. When it comes to Lords of Shadow 2, one moment. A little parched. Doing a lot of yelling. So when it comes to Lords of Shadow 2, it's pretty much, Dracula is ready to die. Nobody truly wants to live forever. And, it comes down to his son, ready to kill him if he stops Satan from coming back. Cool. Satan seems to be the new baddie around here. You play as Dracula, which everybody wants to play as the bad guy at some point in a video game. Look at the people that love playing as Albert Wesker in Resident Evil games. It's good to see it from a different point of view. You understand that you're a bad person, but you understand that you also have that piece of you that wants to come back from it. Long story short, Dracula and Alucard end up spending their days as father and son, which is something that you don't see often, where the bad guy gets the happy ending. What drove me to enjoy this story, the story, not the game, the story of the game, what drew me to that is that very first episode in Netflix. You feel some sort of sympathy for Dracula. The woman comes to you, not frightened. Frightened you won't give her knowledge, maybe, but she's not terrified of you. She teaches you about humanity. She wants to help the world, and she wants to help you help the world. Travel as a man. You can be more than what you are in the castle, just for her to die for nothing. The Netflix show couldn't give me the happy ending that I was hoping for. Lords of Shadow did. There's nothing wrong with these games as far as story-wise. If you're not interested in, as he said, the God of War style gameplay, which really, you should totally be fine with that shit. If you've played like Dante's Inferno, of course, God of War, some other crap, probably. I think what old school Castlevania fans have, which from what I can tell seems to be that nostalgia feeling. I've heard it from James from the Angry Video Game Nerd, Aaron from Game Grumps, Ego Raptor. They both say it in their videos. They say that it's the nostalgic feeling of it. That doesn't mean you should discard new ideas. God of War was Game of the Year for 2018. It didn't completely ditch the program. It stuck to some sort of elements there, but it was a different game. And it got praised for it. Maybe because it was an old back way when. It still won. It still made it big. I have the collector's edition somewhere around here. I almost platinumed the entire fucking game. It's a game that I love playing. Why couldn't Lords of Shadow be the same way? It's a different story. I get it. It's not the little old school like you're hoping for. There are literally dozens of these different games, but people like to go back to the NES and SNES, and it's just like, you can hold on to it. That's fine. You can hold on to your memories. Hold on to the nostalgic feeling. Nobody's telling you to leave it behind. But give newer games a chance. What if we get a God of War AAA effort of a Castlevania game? Are you gonna bash on that too? Could look beautiful. Could play great. I don't know. In the end, it's my opinion. That's what I think. It eventually just built up to where I just had to make a video about it. I will leave the links down below if you want to see Ego Raptor or Angry Video Game Nerd. Both of them are great. They both talk about Castlevania. I will also leave a link to I keep forgetting the channel's name, Gamer Thumb TV. I'm really excited to look at their Resident Evil timeline. I'm hoping that I have the time for it as well. But I do highly recommend that if you're just getting into Castlevania, just watch the Netflix show first. If it draws you in, trust me, you'll want more, you'll go seeking more, you'll come back here, and then we'll go from there. That's all I have. I don't know when I'll do another video. I'm not 100% certain. I do want to start doing these more frequently, so maybe once a week, maybe every other day. It really depends, but I do want to try harder. Those last 2 subscribers that I got really kind of pushed me. There are people that are waiting, and the show must go on. But until then, I'll see you on the other side.